Hey, ladies and gents, welcome back into the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. Before GP and I get into the meat of this episode, a reminder, we are auctioning off not just one, but two bonus episodes. If you are watching on YouTube right now, you are seeing the eBay link come up. That is where you need to go. If you're watching this, look down below in the description. If you are listening on your phone, go to the podcast description. Also, find my Twitter account, at Matt Norlander, at Gary Parrish CBS, at Eye on CBB Podcast, even the at CBS Sports CBB social media account. We will share this eBay link frequently. We are giving you a 20-second episode. The details of why it wasn't just one bonus episode, but two have been, well, previously detailed on an earlier episode. I won't bore you with that, but please go and bid if you are a fan of a Division I school that has not already been highlighted or will be highlighted in our Summer Shootaround series. You are going to get the bonus episode. Oklahoma, congratulations, won the first bonus episode. This second auction, which can only be won at the eBay link in the description, will go up. It will be the very last Summer Shootaround that we do. Oklahoma won for $500. I want to try and double that. I want to get it to at least 1,000. Rally your friends. You can be from the biggest school we haven't talked about to literally a low major and a one-bid league in the middle of nowhere. If you win it, we're talking about you. That's a reminder. Rally your friends. The auction ends August 25th. August 25th. You have between now and then to win your episode. We appreciate all the love and support. We got a mailbag episode coming soon. Send all of your suggestions to that. Shouts to cbs@gmail.com. And now let's get to the show.
Hey there, it's Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, smash the like button like you're Brandon Davies. You have consent, and if you haven't yet, subscribe to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel. Also do that while you're here. Let's get into it. Today we are continuing our Summer Shootaround series that we're going to be doing over a 7-week span. We've already published episodes on Arizona, Arkansas, Baylor, Connecticut, Creighton, Duke, Florida Atlantic, Gonzaga, Houston, Kansas, Kentucky, Marquette, and Miami. We're working in alphabetical order. So now we're turning our attention to Michigan State. Tom Izzo Spartans, 21-13 last season, 11-8 in the Big Ten. Only played 19 league games because one game was canceled after a school shooting. So that 11-8 league record represented a tie for second in the loss column of the Big Ten standings. Michigan State lost to Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament opener for them. Then the Spartans got a 7 seed in the NCAA tournament, beat USC and Marquette to advance to the Sweet 16, where they lost to Kansas State 98-93 in overtime.
Epic game.
Inside Madison Square Garden. Shouts to Jerome Tang. More of us. 5 of the top 6 scorers from that team are back. And that's why I've got Michigan State ranked 5th in the top 25 and 1. We'll see what Norlander thinks about that next. But first, a word from our partners.
You up for playing outside the lines?
What are her directives then?
Neutralize the target.
You do it quiet and you do it clean.
If your cover is blown, you have to save yourself.
Did you hit the target?
I'm doing everything different this time.
She's your field agent. Do what you think's best.
All right, Deadleg.
What do we got?
Michigan State as a preseason top 5 team.
What's on the table?
Do you believe it?
Ooh.
Or are you not buying it?
Okay.
I'm running out
of
in
all seriousness, kids were just outrageous today. I was going to look up a couple of words and have it ready for you. Don't have that. So we'll look for that.
I'm going to need your help. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through all 7 weeks by myself.
In an episode to come. Michigan State. Been waiting on this episode for a while, as I'm sure many in Sparty Nation have been as well. What do we make of this team? Because I think it has reached the point in the offseason where Michigan State is considered a near universal pick to be the number 2 team in the Big Ten. And that's if you want to put Purdue number 1, which I think is rational and reasonable at this point. We will get to Purdue on a future shoot-around episode. But whether or not you believe that, whatever. If you think it should be Michigan State 1, or sure. But I think it's got a good chance. And the biggest reason why is this, and GP will run down the roster as he does on all these shoot-around episodes. But I was looking into everyone that came back, and they're going to have a really good 3-guard attack. But they've got 4 seniors here, or 4 seniors or super seniors, 4 players that have logged at least 4 years of college or more. Okay. And with that, you've got Tyson Walker, who should be in, one of the 5 to 10 best players probably in the Big Ten. Malik Hall, who at times is sometimes the best player and sometimes the 5th best player. Madi Sissoko is back as well, and AJ Hogard. This is the only time in Tom Izzo's career as a head coach, the only time where he will be running a program that will see 4 seniors starting, or if for whatever reason one of these guys winds up not being a starting, 4 of the 6 players logging the most minutes on this team will be seniors or super seniors. That has never happened. Somewhat shockingly, has never been the case with 4 since Izzo has been at Michigan State. And so because of that, I'm of 2 minds on this. This core, if you will, has not, succeeded and really had, outright tremendous regular seasons to this point. The last time Michigan State was able to log, north of 22 wins in a regular season was 2018, 2019. The score wasn't there. It's been good. Obviously, they make the tournament every year, and they played in, again, the best tournament game of last year, GP. I was there at the Garden. It was incredible. And hell, you know what? If they beat K-State, maybe Tom Izzo gets one over on Dusty May, and we're talking about Izzo going to a 9th Final Four. But that didn't happen. Nevertheless, they make it to the Sweet 16. But this group hasn't shown itself to be that just yet over the course of a regular season. Now, there have been injury issues, of course. But maybe because it is Izzo, because it is Michigan State, they've got a good freshman class, which we'll get to. Maybe it is their time to truly mature and take that big jump to be a top 2 team in the Big Ten, to be a top 10 level team in the country. But every so often, we do have these teams that they stick together, which ideally is a good thing. We just have not seen this team be, in my estimation, a top 10 team at its core. The question is, will it be that? I think it's got a good chance. And Izzo will have something to play with here that he's never had before. He has never relied on this many 4th-year and 5th-year players in his history as a head coach, and that obviously you would think should probably be an advantageous thing.
I did not know that. That does surprise me. You think of him as running a program that relies more heavily on older guys than, say, the Dukes and Kentuckys of the modern era. So he's had older guys before, but as you pointed out,
2 or 3, but never been 4. Yeah,
it's never been this. He's never had this many older guys. It's the classic question we ask about somebody every year. Can you, because they were good last year, but just good. Do you remember we never talked about them? And I made this point one time. My buddy Commander King brought it up. He said, God, I haven't heard you talk about Michigan State all year.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was interesting because it's Michigan State. It's Tom Izzo. And as I started thinking through, okay, why are we not talking about them? The answer was because they weren't great enough to be a true national story, and they weren't a disaster enough to be a national story. Like, what do you spend a lot of time talking about last season? It's whoever was. It's Purdue is amazing, right? That's all year long, every week, all year long. And then Kentucky's a disappointment. Carolina's a disappointment.
Fire. We'll get to Carolina on our next shoot-around episode. Stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, who is great and who is supposed to be great but is really bad, and then everything in the middle kind of gets lost. And Michigan State just stayed in the middle all year, really, until they made the Sweet 16. They finished 26th at KenPom. So to your point, it's a nice core. It's a talented core. But can these guys go from being good to great? Because that's what you're asking them to do. You finished 26th at KenPom. Basically, everybody's back except Joey Hauser. Can you be great? We'll see. But it is interesting to me. I've got Florida Atlantic as, I believe, 4th in the top 25-1, and Michigan State 5th in the top 25-1. And I'll get a lot of pushback on Florida Atlantic, a whole bunch. Nobody's tweeted me one time about Michigan State except to say maybe I have them underrated. Florida Atlantic finished 17th at KenPom, brings back every starter, and I have them 4th. And people think that's crazy. Michigan State finished 26th at KenPom, brings back 4 starters, but not 5. I have them 5th in the top 25 and 1, and everybody thinks that's completely reasonable. And that's just a perception thing. I get it. It's the Florida name. It doesn't make sense. But that'll be the big question for Michigan State. Can you go from being good to being great? And I should say, it's worth pointing out, it's not just they're bringing these guys back. So they do have new additions, and one of them is Xavier Booker, a 5-star freshman ranked 11th in the class of 2023. That's a little bit like, if you remember Memphis in 2007, 2008, they brought back 4 starters from a Elite 8 team and then added a 5-star freshman in Derrick Rose, and then they took off.
Xavier Booker is not Derrick Rose. And
I'm ready. I was about to say it if you didn't.
First of all, he's a 6'10" center, but
Yeah,
and Derrick Rose was the best player in his class.
I was about to say it if you didn't. He's not Derrick Rose, but this is similar in the sense that you've got a nice core of veterans that did go to the Sweet 16, and now you're adding a 5-star freshman with them. Let's see what happens. I think they're going to be good. Obviously, if I didn't, I wouldn't have them in the top 5, but they're going to have to be. They have to go from good to great. That's the challenge. I think they'll meet it, but nothing's guaranteed.
Yeah, they got to make the jump. And one school, we did this a couple times last offseason when we did our summer shoot-arounds. And I just remember Creighton specifically being one. Because Creighton was 50th, and then I had skepticism Creighton would be a top 10 team. Lo and behold, they finished 12th at Ken Pom, and they were a play away from making the Final Four, and they were a 6th seed. So they were not a top 10 team, but they were reasonably in that 12 to 15 discussion. Here's the thing on Michigan State, just for a little, broaden that out just a little bit more. You mentioned 26 at Ken Pom. It was across the board. They were that kind of level team. They were 29th in the Massey composite. Massey itself, they were 24th, 26th at evanmia.com, 25th at Torvik, 22nd at Sagarin. They were a good team. Can they make that jump? And part of this will obviously be the league they are in and how they position themselves and are able to get wins. Of course, we will get to the schedule at the end of this show. I think they can do it. But I think we should at least be a bit more receptive to the possibility that the Big Ten last year, I know I brought it up on a couple shows because I tweeted it out. It was Purdue, everyone else, and then Minnesota. Maybe it will be Purdue, everyone else, and then Minnesota again. I don't know. Maybe Ben Johnson's got it rolling. The Golden Gophers will wind up, 9th, 10th, or 11th in the league. We'll see on that. There's a chance that Michigan State, in my opinion, and it's a non-zero and a healthy non-zero chance, that maybe Sparty finishes 3rd, 4th, or 5th. That would not be a stunner, and it wouldn't mean that Michigan State wasn't capable of getting to another second weekend. Wouldn't mean that Michigan State isn't even necessarily a top 20 team. There could be a scenario where the Big Ten really gets its act together, and we look up in the first week of January, and we look at the AP Top 25, and Michigan State is one of 5 teams from the Big Ten that's ranked. I think that's entirely reasonable. I think it's a good thing, most of all, that they've got 3 guys coming back who can be playmakers, have the ball in their hands, and be relatively reliable. Jaden Akins is a big name to know. I think that he is going to have a very big year. Tyson Walker will be expected to be the best player. This kind of leads me to my next thing, and then take it away with all other things people should know about the roster. The thing with Michigan State, and I don't know if this was holding them back or not. I don't know who the alpha, who's the guy. Is it AJ Hoggard? Because sometimes it can be him. Will it be Akins? I know it can be Walker on plenty nights. Malik Hall could be one of those guys. I don't think it'll be Sissoko on most. Is Xavier Booker going to come in and steal the spotlight for 3 or 4 games this season? I don't know if this team absolutely needs to have the guy. I guess it's maybe Tyson Walker, but I'm not sold on him being second, third team All-American level player just yet. Might be able to get there, but I don't know who the number 1 there is. And if they win by committee and it's a different player each night, sometimes that can work, but sometimes that can institute a ceiling on a team. And I wonder if Michigan State might have that situation this season.
If Michigan State has an All-American, I would bet that it is Tyson Walker. He should be that guy. He's a 5th-year player now. He's little, but he averaged 14.8 points per game last season, shot 41.5% from 3 on 4.2 attempts per game, 80% from the line. I'll keep it simple. If Michigan State is actually a top 5 team, like we look up in into February and it's like, yeah, that's one of the 5 best teams in the country. They're in contention for a top 2 seed, and Tyson Walker is having a similar year to last season, but let's say slightly better because it should be. He'll be an All-American, 1st, 2nd, 3rd team. He'll be an All-American. As you know, as somebody who thinks about this and votes on this stuff, your team success does matter. And if he's the best player on a top 5 team, that's usually we're going to find a spot on an All-America team for you. So I would assume the guy's Tyson Walker, but I like all 3 of the guards. You mentioned the 3-guard lineup. Jaden Walker has, he averaged 9.8 points per game last season, shot 42.2% from three on 3.9 attempts per game. And then there's AJ Hoggard. He's a fourth-year player, 13 points per game last season. He's kind of the non-shooter of the group. He was below 33% from three. And he does have a pretty high turnover rate of 18.7. So he's flawed in some ways. But all those guys are old and accomplished, and at least two of the three are reliable three-point shooters. You start them at the 1, 2, 3, go Malik Hall at the 4, Xavier Booker at the 5. That's a pretty nice starting lineup. It's interesting with freshman centers because they are usually, there's like a handful, maybe one or two that are great. And then it can take a while for the other ones the other guys sometimes need like a second year. You saw this with Derek Lively a little bit last season. He took him a little while to get comfortable. And I should say, like, Xavier Booker is not Derek Lively either. But, if you tell me he can be one of the best freshman bigs in the country, those other four guys are proven and reliable. I think Booker in many ways is the X factor here. Like, what are you getting from him? Because I think I know what I'm going to get from the other four guys in the starting lineup, assuming that's the starting lineup. Booker's the X factor, but if he's one of the best freshman bigs in the country, then yeah, Tom Izzo is going to have one of the best teams in the country.
Keep an eye on Walker and Akins were both, north of 40% from three last season. And let's just say that they're going to do that again. And hopefully they can. Maybe Hoggard can bump up from, 33% into that 35, 36, 37th percentile. If they can do that, because it's Izzo, I'm wondering how much burn Jackson Kohler will get. He needs to make a jump as a sophomore. He's a big. Now he's a little bit of a different big, and he's a good passing big. Carson Cooper has to make a jump as a sophomore. He was a 6'11" guy. I'm with you. It should be Booker, but I wonder how they're going to work their bigs because they have plenty of guard play. I mean, Jeremy Fears is another guy that's coming out of the Joliet, Chicago area. Booker's out of Indianapolis, and he's a 6-foot freshman, and I don't know how much playing time he will or won't get, but I think he's going to have a chance to at least get some burn. And this Cohen Carr freshman 6'7", apparently like a plus athlete as well. So I think they're going to have the opportunity to give you a variety of different kind of looks. I don't know how ultra reliable the bigs are, but I feel like Michigan State can go small, can go four guard if you need them to, or maybe they get to a point where they can play a couple of athletic wings with the big, depending on where they're at. I'll also note this on the roster stuff. Michigan State is just like Marquette, FAU, and Duke. And how are they like those three teams, GP? Marquette, FAU, and Duke. Why is Michigan State like them?
Marquette,
FAU, and Duke.
FAU and Duke all return 3 double-digit scores.
All did not go to the portal to enhance their roster.
And they didn't go to the portal. That's also true.
So while this tactic is not popular, we do have 4 teams in the top 10 conversation that did not utilize the portal to, in theory, get stronger. So it's still a tactic out there for some, and the variety of coaches you have there. You've got Izzo, who's a grizzled vet, Shaka Smart in the middle of his career, and then Dusty May only in his 6th season, Shire in year number 2, and a variety of different programs from different leagues. I found that to be intriguing.
The explanation there, I think, and you could talk to Dusty and Shaka and Tom about this, but it's because I've talked to other coaches about this. I want to be clear, not them specifically, but other coaches about this. Who was the big transfer in the portal last year? Marcus Carr, was he in there?
He was one of the big ones.
Okay, yeah. So I was talking to one coach, and he was like, listen, I think we could have got in there with Marcus Carr. Like, we probably wouldn't have got him, but we had a chance. But we didn't even pursue it because I was bringing back my starting backcourt. And those guys like each other. Mm-hmm. They play well together. They believe in each other. And I just felt like if I went into the portal and grabbed somebody who's going to disrupt that relationship or the playing time of those, it's not like Marcus Carr's great, but I feel like I do damage to my locker room. I feel like I do, you tell these young people, hey, if you come back, you're good, then I know your backcourt mate's coming back and we're going to return 4 starters. And you tell them all this in March and April, and then they come back and then you go in July and add a Marcus Carr. And you're just going to have, it has the potential for chemistry problems. Now, obviously, he then goes to Texas and it's fine, right? It worked. Yeah. He won a lot of games. But I've had coaches tell me I'm hesitant to go into the portal and grab a projected starter who's going to push a projected starter to the bench because it can mess up your team. And the thing that Florida Atlantic, Marquette, and Duke all have in common, and Michigan State all have in common, they're bringing back a lot of starters.
And
they're bringing back
backcourts, like
a lot of guys who started a lot of games last year and played a lot of minutes. And if you start recruiting over them through the portal, it can be a thing that causes you problems. And I bet you the reason any of those guys didn't get into the portal isn't because they don't see value in it. It's because it's like, I like what I've got coming back, and I don't really want to mess with that too much.
Agreed. You got any more thoughts before we get to the schedule?
I just think it sort of gets glossed over. You mentioned earlier, like, they were good. They went to the NCAA tournament. They always go to the NCAA tournament. It's 25 straight years now. 25, I should say 25 straight NCAA tournaments, because I don't know if you heard, 2020.
I heard it.
We didn't have a tournament.
I know. I'm aware.
Isn't that something?
I'm aware.
Isn't that something? So, but he's been to 25 straight NCAA tournaments, and that's the record. Right now, Kansas, that's a record for a coach.
Kansas is the most straight, but hasn't had the same coach.
Yeah. Kansas has been at 33 straight with Roy Williams and Bill Self. Gonzaga, 24 straight, but that's Dan Monson and Mark Few. Michigan State, 25 straight. It's only Tom Izzo. That's incredible. Coach K went 24 straight from 96 to 2019. And then we had no tournament in 2020. I don't know if you heard about that. And then he went 13-11 in 2021 and missed the tournament despite winning the last game of the season. It's all weird. And finishing 36th at KenPom. Like, they were one of the highest ranked teams at KenPom left out of the field. And they didn't continue in the ACC tournament because they had a player pop positive, and they ended the season right there. So that is actually what broke Coach K's streak. So now Tom Izzo at 25, that's the active record for an individual coach. And how about this? Let me trivia time you. Trivia time.
Go. Tom
Izzo has made 25 straight NCAA tournaments. How many times has he been a double-digit seed?
That's a good one. It's I'll say of the 25, I'll say that MSU has been on the double-digit line 5 times.
Only 3.
Get out of here.
2002.
Two of those are in the past 6 seasons, I think.
2002, there was a 10 seed. 2011, 10 seed.
Yeah.
And then 2021, 11 seed. I believe that's when they were in the first 4.
It was. That was first 4.
So it's about every 10 years he'll struggle and only get a double-digit seed.
Yeah.
But on average, the average seed in these 25 appearances, 5.2. He's had more number 1 seeds, 4, than double-digit seeds, 3.
That's good stuff right there.
It's remarkable.
He's in the Hall of Fame. Here is the schedule for Michigan State. We don't have the schedule hasn't been out and out released, but they only have 4 games of note in the non-con. Everything else is a bye game. They play, and actually, just because I guess this is the way that breaks this year, Tom Izzo, and I didn't have time to look this up. If you are an intrepid Michigan State fan, I'd be curious to know the last time or how frequently since literally Tom Izzo got the job, he has a non-con that doesn't include a road game. That's what we have here, because they play Duke in Chicago for the Champions Classic. They've got Arizona in Palm Springs, 2 quality games, of course. They get Butler at home in the Gavitt games. That seems, I don't know why that was the case, but whatever. They get Michigan State draws Butler, one of the best teams draws theoretically. Maybe we'll be wrong about Butler, but maybe one of the 4 bottom teams in the Big East. And then they have Baylor in Detroit. So those are the 4 big non-league games. They'll play 7 bye games. And then the Big Ten, here's the rotation. Only at home against Iowa, Ohio State, and Rutgers. Only on the road against Indiana. They're going to walk into Pinnacle. And Purdue, which Tom Izzo at Purdue, I think he's won like 3 times ever there. I'm probably exaggerating that, but that has been a house of horrors for Michigan State, particularly in the past decade plus. And then they've got home and away against the Illini, the Terps, Wolverines, Gophers, Northwestern, Knits, and the Badgers. So that being said, last time Michigan State won more than 22 games in regular season was 2018-19. I'm going to set the over-under at 23.5, considering, again, Duke, Zona, Baylor, non-con. It is the Big Ten. They do have to play on the road against the likes of potential tournament teams in Wisconsin, Maryland, Illinois, Indiana, Purdue. There can be some others in there. We'll see about that. Over under 23.5. Where are you going?
I'm going to give them one non-league loss.
Ooh,
Only one.
For sure we're giving them 2.
Only one.
Okay. Who's it going to be? Let's have a little fun. Duke? You've got Duke rated above them. No, Arizona.
It'll be Duke. It'll be Duke. They'll lose to Duke in the Champions Classic. I don't know. Although, Coach K's not there anymore. I don't know if you heard about that.
Talk about the history there. Maybe it all starts to turn around for Izzo against Duke.
Tom Izzo is going to take all his Coach K beatings out on John Shire.
Yeah, maybe that's the case. We'll see. Yep.
I would assume it's the Duke game, right? But I don't know. I'll give them one non-league loss. And then I'll give them, let's go 14-6 in the Big Ten. That's 7 losses, 31 minus 7, 24. I'm flying over. Oh, what's my Final Four table looking like now?
Spartans don't fly.
Yes,
we
they
do have the same number, but we're getting there different. So I've got 2 non-league losses, and I'll talk the talk and walk the walk here. I'll say they get picked off by Duke and Zona, and then they settle in and they get business taken care of near home against Baylor. And then at 5, I got them 15-5. So I'll say the 5 losses come at IU, at Purdue, and then some combo of 3. So let's just say 1 against Illinois, 1 against Maryland, 1 against Wisconsin. So we are even here, 24-7. I almost went 23-8, but I was like, I'll take the over on this one. So we both have Sparty going 24-7. And to wrap this up, I do think having this core in place is going to pay off. And while, we could get a hop on a podcast with MSU having lost against Duke and Arizona. And so in that moment, they won't be rated in the top 15 in the poll, but someone remind me then, if it does happen, that we talked about that very scenario coming to pass. And then they just study themselves like they always do. Maybe they get their act together. And with this at 15-5, I have decided, so it shall be, so it is, that MSU will be the second best team and finish second in the Big Ten next season.
You mentioned earlier that last year it felt like Purdue, everybody else, then Minnesota. If you go by Bart Torvik's preseason rankings right now, it's close to that again. Purdue at number 1. Preseason number 1, by the way, at Bart Torvik is Purdue, which makes total sense to me. Like if I were to do that, my mentions would be outrageous, but it makes total sense. Purdue at 1, Michigan State at 8, and then no other Big Ten teams until Illinois at 29. And then you have Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, Northwestern, Maryland, Ohio State, Iowa, Nebraska, Michigan, and Rutgers, all between 29 and 58. I mean, you could basically put those in any order. And then you get Minnesota at 131 and Penn State at 147. So according to Torvik's preseason rankings, it is basically Purdue and Michigan State fighting for the top 2 spots. Then Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, Northwestern, Maryland, Ohio State, Iowa, Nebraska, Michigan, Rutgers fighting through the middle. And then big gap, Minnesota, Penn State. That's the Big Ten.
And that's the show.
Shouts to David Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Huck. Shouts to Larnell. Thank you guys once again for watching, listening to Eye on College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, please go do that. Spotify, Apple. You can subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcast. Rate it, review it. There's more of us than there are of them. That needs to be reflected in the comments, so make sure to do that. We will talk to you again real soon. Next up, it's a good one. It's the North Carolina Tar Heels. Till then, take care.